make you deathly ill very quickly. But you can protect yourself and you can protect family. COVID-19 vaccines are free and safe. I got the last of the 2-dose vaccine in January, and I'm doing well. This virus is real. The vaccine protects you from serious illness and death. Ask the questions you have to get the answers you need. Help North Carolina fight COVID by getting vaccinated.
For more information on COVID-19 vaccines in your community, visit myspot.nc.gov.
43 degrees. No, not 43, 34. I reversed those numbers. Excuse me, 34 degrees. We're just above freezing. It's a cold winter. January, Tuesday morning. But we're going to warm it up. Thank you for tuning in with your community radio station. Our goal to be your station for inspiration and information. You know, Tuesdays at this time, it's a great program, community program. We appreciate Brother Kevin Brooks, Brother Jay Reinstein, Honest Conversations. Let's go live now to the WIDU Community Room with this week's edition of Honest Conversations.
Well, thank you, Brother Wes. We appreciate that great intro. We have a good show today.
Yeah.
Don't we, Marco?
Should be a great one. We have some fantastic people from the area, from Methodist University.
We do. We have, we're going to be talking to Dr. Patrick O'Neill in just a few minutes. He is the chair of the history department at Methodist University. But I wanted to find out from you. Now, Kev is not here. You don't hear Kev's voice.
Yeah.
You are Kev today, so it's really Honest Conversations with Marco and Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to be the new co-host.
You are the co-host.
Kev needs to watch this spot. Mm-hmm.
You better watch it. Now, you are just coming back from a great vacation. While I got to vacation and done, you were vacationing out of this country.
Yes, I was in Peru for Christmas and the New Year's. My family is Peruvian, my dad's side, and so we went back, saw some family. That's always good to do, get with family during the holidays, and it's been a while since we've been down there. And also ate some great food. Peruvian food is delicious.
What would be a great Peruvian dish? Something that maybe I would be familiar with.
Ceviche.
Ceviche, I've heard of that. Tell our listeners what that is.
Yeah, it's raw fish cooked in usually a mix of like lime juice and some other things. It's something you usually want to eat on the coast, not inland very much. But down there we were in Lima, which is the capital of Peru, and that is along the coast of the country. So a lot of good seafood.
Would they do that at Captain D's?
They might, but I don't know if I would trust it exactly.
Okay, I just was checking there. Well, thank you, Marco, for that. Glad you're here today.
Me too. Yeah.
Again, Marco is going to be with us every week. Mm-hmm. He is a senior at Methodist and a star lacrosse player.
Yes, star in your words.
Star in my words, and season is starting soon.
Yes, actually next week, so should be exciting.
Okay, I'm going to be coming to the games. Well, we're going to talk today. I wanted to introduce Dr. O'Neill and tell us a little bit. I want him to tell our listeners a little bit about himself, but we've wanted to do a show. Kevin and I have talked for over a year about doing a show about the Constitution and some of the questions that have come up over the last year and a half about the Constitution. And hopefully Dr. O'Neill could help educate us and our listeners about the history of the Constitution and maybe some questions. And maybe we'll take some questions from our listeners the second half of the show. So welcome to Honest Conversations, Dr. O'Neill.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Patrick O'Neill. Like you said, I'm a professor at Methodist University, and I'm chair of the history department.
And you're from Omaha, Nebraska.
I am a proud Nebraskan. Our football team is no longer proud, but perhaps one day we will return.
How did they do this year?
Very badly, thank you.
They did. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rub it in or anything, Dr. O'Neill. But they really did very badly. I'm sorry to hear that.
That's okay. Hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Great. Well, listen, so I wanted to sort of set the tone, and I know Marco will probably have questions too, but here's some of the things I wrote, and as I was driving into the studio today, when I got here, I jotted a few things down that we've heard over the last year and a half, and I wanted to throw out these things just to sort of get the conversation going, and then we'll go from there. So some of the things that we've heard is, the Constitution is over 200 years old, and it's no longer relevant. It was written by a bunch of white guys who don't look like me. Many of the writers were slave owners. times have changed. This document, this Constitution needs to be amended. So when you hear comments like this, how do you respond? And we'll go from there.
Well, those are all good questions. They're problematic ones, partly because some of them are true, right? Many of the framers of the Constitution were slaveholders. All of them were white. So if you don't happen to be white, then you're right. None of them looked like you.
Yeah.
And that, of course, has been true of America. We've got leadership in this country that does not always represent the people who live in the country. And you can actually see that right in the Constitution, though. The preamble, the three most famous words of the Constitution that everybody knows are "we the people."
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually pretty careful. You can find that elsewhere. It does not say "we the citizens." So when they say "we the people," they actually meant to claim to stand for all the people. And so that gave them it gave them the chance to claim that they were speaking for people whom they were not speaking for. So, for instance, black and brown people would not have been included in "we the people," and yet they got to say, "we represent these people" at the same time. On the other hand, at the same time, being included in "we the people" gave people who didn't look at all like the framers, didn't look at all like the founding fathers, a chance to claim a role in American history and in American government as time went by. And so "we the people" would end up meaning a lot to people like Martin Luther King, who, when he had his chance, claimed his part of being the people, rather than saying, "I was not excluded from this. It was people who excluded me, but my birthright is to be part of the Constitution." When it comes to amending it, it's true, the Constitution has a high bar to amending it. You've got to have 2/3 of Congress send it to the states, and then 3/4 of the states have to accept the amendment. That's a high bar, and that's why it's been amended so few times in American history. I would say, I'm not sure if you want to indict or damn the Constitution, I'm not sure that's the best way to do it.
Got it.
And the way you can see that is all the change that is possible in America under the Constitution, even if you keep the Constitution the same. So, 2 examples. The Civil Rights Movement did not change the Constitution. What the Civil Rights Movement did was go back to the 14th Amendment, which says that all people have equal protection under the laws. And the Civil Rights Movement said, well, okay, let's actually do that. Let's make our laws enforce the equal protection of the laws for everybody. And so they managed to change American history in really significant ways without ever changing the Constitution. The second example has happened over the past 50 years or so, where the conservative movement in America has dramatically changed American life and the way that we read the Constitution without ever getting an amendment passed. The Supreme Court is about to, if not overturn, at least possibly do away with Roe versus Wade. They didn't need a constitutional amendment to do that.
Right.
All they had to do was to convince a bunch of judges and justices that maybe that actually could be part of the Constitution. The same thing is true of the right to bear arms. Nobody, truly nobody, thought prior to the last 50 years or so that individuals had a constitutional right to keep a handgun in their homes. But since 1980 or so, and really since 2008, the Supreme Court has decided that under the same Constitution they'd always had, that people do have a right to have handguns in their homes. And I think if we're reading the tea leaves right, they're going to decide that we have the right to carry handguns out in public. Well, again, there's no new constitutional amendment that says that specifically. So they're managing to change American life in really significant ways without changing the Constitution.
Interesting. When was the last time there was an amendment to the Constitution, and what was that?
Sure. It was, I want to say, the 26th Amendment, but it was in 1996, I want to say.
Okay.
I've got it here. Let me just make sure I'm not lying. It's better not to lie.
Yeah, we really we'd like people
Try to
not
avoid
lying
that,
on the
yeah.
show. Yeah, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, so I was wrong on both counts. It was the, but I was close, let's say.
Yeah.
It was the 27th Amendment.
Mhm.
It was from 1992, and it said, no law varying the compensation for the services of senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. And I think you can actually figure out what they're trying to do there. They're trying to say, if you're in Congress, you don't get to raise your own
Right.
salary.
Not until the next election.
Yeah.
That's when it goes into effect.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that you can raise your salary, but then you have to face the consequences of an election that say, maybe we want to kick those bums out who tried to raise their salary. And if you lose, then you don't get to benefit from that.
Yeah, interesting.
So it seems, from what I'm hearing, that it has to do a lot with the interpretation of the Constitution. So whatever current power or side or, wherever you are in the spectrum, wherever they're looking at the Constitution is how it is perceived.
Yeah, I think that's about right. The issue, of course, is that there are guardrails set up there, and that's essentially the judiciary. So you want to talk about interpreting the Constitution. It really depends on who the judges are. So you go back to the most infamous of Supreme Court cases, the Dred Scott case
Right.
in 1858, I want to say. There, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court not only says that black people cannot be citizens, he goes back and says, no, it is impossible that any of the founders could ever have wanted black people to be citizens. And so that's an interpretation that wouldn't hold up today.
Yeah.
And in fact, in 1863 or 4, Abraham Lincoln starts saying, wait a second, if you look back at this, we can see we the people, not we the citizens, not the
Right.
white people. Abraham Lincoln responds to that and starts treating African Americans as citizens. So it's not like everything shifts immediately, but it sure does help to have power.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you happen to control the Supreme Court, then your interpretation is going to matter more.
Well, what is the significance of a country like the U.S. and other countries of having a constitution?
Oh, sure. I'd say it's probably two important things. One is stability, and the other is rights and guarantees. So I might read this once or twice today, so I apologize. The Preamble to the Constitution turns out to be important. And it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and I'm going to stop for a second there. And promote the general welfare. If you read all 5 of those things, all of those have to do with stability. Defense, general welfare, domestic tranquility. And the reason they put that in there is because after the Revolution, the government was founded under the Articles of Confederation, which were not seen as stable enough. The federal government couldn't tax the states, for one thing. They couldn't call up the militia to put down rebellions. There were rebellions taking place, people refusing to pay taxes. So they put in the Constitution in hopes of providing more stability so that they could have things like tranquility and general welfare. And then there's the 6th part, which is secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So you see all 5 of those are about stability, and then one of them is about liberty. And then you get to the Bill of Rights, which is also part of the Constitution, where they start laying out, okay, we're going to have this bigger government, it's going to be stronger, but we want to make sure that within that context, both that the government doesn't abuse its powers and that the people under the government don't feel like the government is abusing its powers. So they want to avoid abuse or misconstruction of the Constitution. So it's an attempt to both keep things stable, keep things prosperous, make it possible so that if you own a business today, you can have a sense that in 3 years or so, the government won't come and take it away from you, or tax protesters won't break down your windows and take it away.
Yeah.
Right.
But also so that in the midst of that, you can secure some liberties. And how that goes is problematic, but you see the point.
You were saying earlier that there's a very high bar for amendments to be passed.
Yeah.
And if some of these other issues that you were talking about that weren't amendments, but they've had very serious impacts on this country, I mean, what if amendments could be easier to pass and these, like something like the civil rights movement was in fact an amendment, or they made like their own little, portion in the Constitution that was directed towards them? Would that, I don't know, make this country with more rules and more like things we need to comply to? Would it be easier because we have more constitutions and things are written out?
Yeah. So that there are solutions and problems in there. It's a bit like Homer Simpson said about alcohol. It's both the cause of and the solution to most of life's problems. Amending the Constitution is not entirely unlike that. So one of the failures of the civil rights movement is its failure to get a better voting rights amendment in the Constitution. The only thing in the Constitution that talks about, virtually the only thing in the Constitution that really talks about what are the conditions under which people can vote is the 15th Amendment. And it says that you can't be denied the right to vote because of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Later they add because of sex, so that's the amendment that allows women to vote. And later they add because of age if you're over 18. But those are reasons why you can't be denied the right to vote. On the other hand, it turns out the Constitution allows lots and lots of other ways to be denied the right to vote, or to have the right to vote made more difficult. So one thing that the civil rights movement could have accomplished was making a clear, explicit, positive right to vote, not saying you can't just be denied for negative reasons. And one horrible, I think, consequence of that is that you can commit one crime in one state and be denied the right to vote for the rest of your life. And that's kind of shocking, and I think
outrageous in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and what I would say is that the law and order folks have a point, right? Which is that if you're invested in the system, then you should be willing to uphold the system and not break the laws. So I appreciate that point. The flip side of it, though, is that I like to think that America is a country of second chances.
There you go.
And third and fourth in many cases. And so if you commit a crime and then do not have your right to vote reinstated, well, then what good did that second chance do you? You could start a really great business or something, but if you can't vote, then something in your citizenship, something in your experience of freedom is missing. So that's an amendment that I think would have helped a lot. The flip side is, though, there are amendments out there being proposed that could maybe get over a lower threshold, but haven't been able to climb the higher threshold. The most controversial might be a Personhood Amendment, which would give citizenship status to fetuses, to unborn babies, and essentially ban abortion. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want on abortion, but if suddenly it's completely banned by the Constitution, that doesn't leave the flexibility for people's ideas about abortion to change, which they have frequently through history. Another, I'll do two more really quickly, a balanced budget amendment, which always sounds really responsible and great until there is, say, an economic crisis, or a COVID crisis. And the COVID crisis kept people from going to work, and if we had had a balanced budget amendment, none of the checks that kept people afloat over the past year and a half, 2 years, could have possibly come to
So it removes that flexibility.
That's right. And the last one I'll say is that people are proposing, the last president, Donald Trump, proposed an amendment getting rid of birthright citizenship, which the 14th Amendment says if you're born in the United States under whatever circumstances, you're a citizen. And they're proposing an amendment to get rid of that. Well, okay, again, I take the point they're making, but the flip side is there's so many productive, valuable citizens and contributors to society who were born under problematic circumstances in the United States and yet grew into people who contribute to society, change us, challenge us, make us a better place. And so if you were to take that out of the Constitution permanently, then there's no room to grow. And you're stuck with an underclass of people who don't have a chance of getting through. So there's a rant.
And I want to talk, it's the elephant in the room is the voting rights. You mentioned voting rights. There is, we're still talking about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that has not been passed. It probably won't be passed. The question I have, what are your concerns with everything going on in the country in many of these Republican led legislatures across the country where they are changing some of the rules, and folks outside looking in are saying they're making it more difficult for people to vote. Ultimately, folks are saying people of color, it will be more challenging putting up all of these obstacles. Talk about that, and if there was an amendment in the Constitution, would that possibly alleviate some of these issues that we're having now? Because it is sort of scary when you think about what is going on in this country now with voting rights. Sure. Talk about that, Dr. O'Neill, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So first off, unintended consequences are always a problem. I have no idea. I may be an expert on American history, but don't ask me to write the next amendment. Sure. Because I'm not sure you want me doing that. We'll talk about that in a second. What I would say about voting rights is that I have this conversation with my students. Laws are usually a good indication of what is happening in real life. So, for instance, if the speed limit is 55, that does not mean that people are going 55. What it means is that people are going 70, and they're trying to rein you back so that maybe you'll go 62. And so they make the speed limit 55, a little bit lower than it ought to be. But if you go down a road and you see that the speed limit is 55, you know that people are actually driving 70.
Yeah.
And so that's an indicator of what is actually happening in real life. Now, one exception to that rule, because usually if there's a law against, I don't know, dealing meth at school or something, some kid has tried to deal meth at school.
Right.
One exception to that rule is all the new voter fraud legislation that is coming out, because there is negligible evidence that actual voter fraud of the I'm pretending to be someone else and taking someone else's vote away, that's happening. I looked it up. Some foundation, a conservative foundation,
I think the Heritage Foundation.
I believe it was them, but it might have been someone else. They found, let's say, 400, maybe 700 instances of voter fraud in the last, or attempted voter fraud in the last, let's say, 8 years. That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a crisis, like something we need to deal with. But if you do the math there and divide that by 50 states, and then realize that it's over the course of, say, 3 elections,
it's negligible.
It's like a sliver of the population.
They're not changing a single election, not a single outcome.
Right.
And so they're making these laws that all they're doing is making it harder to vote.
Right.
Now, the Constitution essentially allows them to do it, and they especially allow them to do it now that the Supreme Court has overturned large parts of the Voting Rights Amendment, not amendment, the Voting Rights Act. So if you want to write a constitutional amendment to preserve the right to vote, then you're going to have to come up with either the longest list of prohibitions. You can't do it because of a poll tax. You can't do it because of gerrymandering. Okay, that's something you could do. The other thing you could do, though, is try to say that within your state, you need to come pretty close to one person, one vote. And you need to provide access to the vote, say, on these days or through these 5 mechanisms. And if you do that, then the Supreme Court, when they're judging whether or not a law to prohibit voting or make it harder is constitutional, then they can look at the Constitution and say, well, no, it very clearly says that you have to be able to vote on these 6 days, or you have to be able to vote by mail if your mail is postmarked by this day. And if you do that, then suddenly this whole fear that we have about the trust that we put into elections, I think actually goes away. It's not something that matters as much to us anymore, because you can guarantee that people are not worried about their right to vote.
Yeah, and it is, I think we are going to have to go to a break in just a second, and it's really fascinating. I mean, I am really...
This is a good conversation.
This is a great conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about voting rights when we come back. Marco, do you have any thoughts before we go to a break?
I will have a few questions. Some of the things you're saying are very interesting, so I have a few things to ask you once we get back.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. You've been listening to Honest Conversations with Marco and Jay right now. It's usually Kev Jay, but Marco's here with us. We're with Dr. Patrick O'Neill, Chair of History Department, Methodist University. We are going to open it up for callers. If folks do have a question for Dr. O'Neill, because we have many here, you can give us a call at 483-6111. That is 483-6111. We'll be back in 2 and 2. Thanks for joining us. See you in a few.
The raw number of COVID-19 cases in North Carolina dropped to its lowest point since Wednesday, but the number remains 40% higher than 1 week ago. For the fifth time in the last week, the daily percent of COVID-19 tests coming back positive is above 30%. The World Economic Forum says cybersecurity and space are emerging risks to the global economy on top of existing challenges posed by climate change and the coronavirus pandemic. The report says cyber attacks are becoming more aggressive and widespread. The U.S. Northeast is girding for extreme cold that was expected to reach a wind chill value of minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit in some northern areas and close some schools elsewhere. There's a chance for snow this weekend in North Carolina. As of this morning, forecast models have snow moving across North Carolina late Saturday into Sunday, but disagree on the system's track. Mike Rayleigh, NCN News.
I'm Ed Heistead, WIDU Radio News. A 20-year-old motorcyclist is dead after being hit while driving on Rayford Road Friday night. Police say Bryce Highs of Fayetteville was driving a 2004 Honda when he was hit by a sedan near Ireland Drive. According to video surveillance, the front of the car collided with the motorcycle, but Fayetteville police have not released any additional information, including the name of the driver of the car. No word yet on whether anyone will be charged. A 36-year-old man from Dunn has pled guilty to 3 counts of possession of a weapon of mass destruction following an incident that seriously injured 2 State Bureau of Investigations agents back in 2019. Jimmy Allen Tyndall will serve 17 to 30 months in prison. When he's released, he'll be on 24 months probation. Tyndall maintained in court he didn't intend to harm anyone and said he purchased chemicals online. As a condition of probation, he was ordered to not possess any of those kind of chemicals ever again in the future. From WIDU Radio, I'm Ed Heistead.
Today is going to be the coldest day of the work week with a lot of sunshine around. Our temperatures will have a hard time warming up. We're going to head into the upper 30s and the lower 40s, but feel like the mid 30s later this afternoon. It's because of that persistent high pressure that we have in place, allowing those winds out of the north. Temperatures tonight will fall into the upper teens and lower 20s. Tomorrow will be a milder day, staying mostly dry. I'm meteorologist Peter Sherwood in the Weather Center.
Hi, I'm Sherry Five Ash with the Greater Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. Our Government Affairs Committee will host a can-do thank you reception for our state delegation. The reception is dedicated to sending thanks to our senators and representatives who brought a massive $412 million funding to our community, and it will touch every segment of our community. Please join the Chamber and our pivotal partners, Airborne and Special Operations Museum Foundation, Falcon Children's Home and Family Services, Cape Fear Valley Health, Cape Fear Regional Theater, and Pruitt Health in expressing our appreciation at our Can-Do Thank You Delegation Reception, Thursday, January 13th at 5:30 p.m. We will express our thanks to our state delegation who worked to bring this funding back to Fayetteville. Join us on Thursday, January 13th at 5:30 p.m. RSVP for this event at www.faybiz.com.
Vaccines are so rigorously studied and have proven to be both very safe and very effective.
Because there's a lot that goes into proving that a vaccine is both safe and effective. That same rigor that we demand as scientists and as physicians has been applied to this.
These are just as safe as all the other childhood immunizations that we have been giving our kids for years.
You can immediately go get it and you do not have to wait any longer.
Kids have a spot to take their shot.
Everyone 5 and older can get a COVID-19 vaccine. Visit myspot.nc.gov.
If you have been injured in a motor vehicle collision, you should understand that the insurance company is not on your side. It is the adjuster's job to get by with paying you as little as possible. Call personal injury trial lawyer Brent Adams now for a free no-obligation consultation. Call now, 910-888-8888. Don't hesitate. Call 8. At Brent Adams and Associates, we make things right.
Good morning. We now return back to the WIDU community room for more of honest conversations with Kev and Jay.
We're back, Marco.
Yeah,
That was
great first half.
That was a great first. Very interesting. I'm taking copious notes over here. I just hope I can read my notes.
I'm going to quiz you next week. So.
I know. Again, we're with Dr. Patrick O'Neill, Chair, History Department, Methodist University, learning a lot about the Constitution. We were just talking about voting rights before we went to break. Again, just want to let folks know if you do want to give us a call, you can call us at 483-6111. Ask Dr. O'Neill a question, or you may have a question for Marco about his trip to Peru. I mean, I don't know what it could be. But let me just talk about voting rights for another moment. You know, we had an election a little more than a year ago, and what you're still hearing 12 months after the election is a lot of talk about voter fraud, voter discrepancies, whatever you want to call it. As we know, after the election, there were 60 lawsuits brought on. There was nothing that showed there was really any voter fraud. My concern is about democracy being at stake. The fear I have with all of these, lies and misinformation being spread, what does that mean for this country? What does it mean for democracy? If you could talk about it and maybe how this relates somehow to the Constitution.
Sure.
Help us, Dr. O'Neill.
Excuse me, it relates intimately to the Constitution. You can't have this conversation without the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the key to that conversation actually has nothing to do with voter fraud today or any of that. What it has to do with is the Senate and the Electoral College. And the reason that those things are so important is that both of those have trained us in one way or another not to trust the results of elections. So the Electoral College is the best example. The Democrats have won, I believe, 5 out of the 6 last popular votes. It might be 4 out of the last 5. And they won the presidency at some of those times, and they lost the presidency some of those times. Hillary Clinton lost the presidency even though she won the popular vote. Al Gore lost the presidency even though he won the popular vote. And again, that's actually the system working as it's designed to work. Some people criticize Donald Trump for lots of reasons, but very few people actually called him constitutionally not the president.
Right.
They may have felt that he was illegitimate, morally or in their hearts or something, but very few Democrats actually said, no, this cannot be, you cannot be president. Instead, they just criticized the guy.
Right.
But that has taught us to assume that the minority might actually win even when they're in the minority. So most Americans can vote for one person, and then that person doesn't win. Well, that is going to sow mistrust. That's going to give us the sense that the system isn't actually set up to allow a majority to rule.
Yeah.
And the Senate, in a very different way, does the exact same thing. I'm from Nebraska, a small state. When I lived in Nebraska, my vote counted more there than it counts here.
Yeah.
And the reason is because there are 3 million people in Nebraska. I also don't know if that's true.
We're going to fact check you on that, Dr. O'Neill.
I said 3 million. Tell me if it's less, because I feel like it's less, but I wanted to be generous to my home state. But there are, 12 million people in North Carolina?
1.9 million.
1.9.
Oh, Dr. O'Neill. I'm a little disappointed in you, Dr. O'Neill.
Nobody is more disappointed in me than the entire state of Nebraska, that's what I'll say.
Right.
So my vote for senator and my senator's votes counted more than the people in North Carolina voting for their senator. And the people in North Carolina's votes count way more than anybody in New York or California.
Yeah.
Because the populations of those states are so great. And yet, if you count up in this last election, all of the Democratic votes for Senate, you will find that the Democrats won by a landslide in terms of the large-scale popular vote, and yet the Republicans...
By like 8 million, I think.
You tell me.
Yeah.
I've already got the population of Nebraska
I want
wrong.
you to fact-check that one. I think it was 8 million, but what do I know, Dr. O'Neill?
Regardless, there's a 50-50 tie in the Senate, and that is deeply unrepresentative of where the population of America was in 2020. Whether those guys are jerks or not is a very interesting question, but the system is set up for us not to expect majority rule. Now, the reason that the system was set up not to expect majority rule comes straight back to the question that you asked right at the start. The founders and the framers didn't look like us, and they didn't trust us, truly, they didn't trust us to be entirely worthy of democracy. So they put in checks and balances, right? The House is going to be representative, and the number of representatives in each state is supposed to work, fairly according to the vote. But the Senate is not going to be representative, and the vote for president is going to be, you can vote for president, and then the Electoral College is supposed to come in, and they're supposed to be wiser and cooler heads, and to decide whether or not the person that the people chose is actually worthy of being president. Now, that is what happens when you get a bunch of wealthy, not evil, perfectly normal, rich folks getting together in 1787 to design a system. It doesn't mean they were evil. It doesn't mean the system is evil. But that fact of the system encourages us not to trust our government and not to trust our elections.
It's interesting. Just one other, just to piggyback on that, your thoughts with the Electoral College versus the popular vote. There's always this talk here, mostly Democrats, I think, have said, we got to get rid of the Electoral College, and we have Kev Brooks walking into the studio right now, but I'm going to keep talking. What are your thoughts about Electoral College versus popular vote?
Sure. I'm going to say a few things about Donald Trump, and you're going to have to forgive me. The things I'm going to say about Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is a breaker of stuff. And I want it understood that breaking stuff is not always a bad thing. What I will say, though, is that the Electoral College was designed, if you go back and read Alexander Hamilton talking about why we need an Electoral College, he is describing someone who sounds like Donald Trump. Now, I should say Donald Trump's election would have shocked most of the Founding Fathers, and sometimes the Founding Fathers need to be shocked. The Founding Fathers would also have been shocked by black people voting. It's not to say that we don't need to break stuff. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So, what I will say is that the Electoral College was put into place specifically so that all the important, wise, rational, blah, blah, blah people in positions of power in America could see the people voting for someone like Donald Trump and then say, no, I think the people got it wrong. We're going to take away your popular vote. Now, I want it also understood, I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's important for the people to get whom they voted for into office. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. If you're going to have a democracy, and specifically if you're going to have a role like the president, the only person who every American actually votes for or against. Everything else is representative or done by the states, but for the president, you actually vote for the president. I think that's a great idea. And the Electoral College was designed to stop that from happening. But here's what happened. When Donald Trump was elected, the Electoral College, as designed by Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, didn't work. Because all those wise, rational, powerful, important people who were supposed to look at someone like Donald Trump coming to office and saying, no, wait, this person doesn't even drink his tea the right way. I have no idea what the right way to drink your tea is. I need a Coke. They didn't do that job. And instead, they did what I actually think they should have done, which is go for the way that the people in their states voted. So if the Electoral College can't do its one job of letting wiser, cooler, more rational, august, rich people to decide who I'm allowed to vote for, then I actually think it's really stupid for us to have an Electoral College that doesn't do its job and instead just gives more power to people in Nebraska and Montana than it does to people in North Carolina.
Right.
So That's one man's opinion. But Donald Trump was a wonderful test of that theory.
Yeah.
And the Electoral College didn't do the thing that Alexander Hamilton is describing, where we shouldn't let someone who just appeals to what the people want into office. And Trump appealed to what the people wanted, and he won, and no one stopped him. So why do we have this system? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great answer.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a great answer.
And you were, one thing I wanted to touch on since the start is that we have a very old constitution as a country, over 200 years old. It's one of the longest in the country. I was reading something here from the University of Chicago that the average lifespan of a constitution is only about 17 years. And that's in the last probably about 200 years. So 17 years versus a 200-year-old constitution. Is that bad? Is that? I mean, I know there are amendments for a reason. It's so that, we don't need to rewrite a constitution every time we need to change something. But, I mean, the last amendment hasn't been for years and years and years. I think you were saying since the 90s?
92, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I eventually got right.
Yeah.
You did.
So, I mean, if we do have this, I guess, aging constitution, it hasn't been changed for, 30-some years or so. I mean, is that good? Do we need something modern?
It's a heck of a question. Some of the some of the problems in the Constitution just come from the fact that the language is old.
Yeah.
There's an emoluments clause in the Constitution, which is meant to stop the president from receiving gifts from foreign countries. The problem is nobody actually knows what an emolument is, right? We have to go look that up. And so the Supreme Court actually has questions about what an emolument actually means, and they're not sure if it's like a gold pendant that was given to Benjamin Franklin, or if that could be the same thing as, say, a prince of Saudi Arabia staying in one of Donald Trump's hotels.
Right.
And so the problem with that is that the language is old and therefore lacks clarity, right? So we don't know what that means. So, okay, that's an argument against. What I would say, though, is that to truly throw out the Constitution or to overhaul it in that way, part of what you get when something is very old is you get a lot of people devoted to it. And that ain't a bad thing either. In fact, a lot of people carry around copies of the Constitution in their pockets. I mean, what a beautiful sentiment to say the faith that people have in the American project, right? The notion that even if things aren't what we'd like them to be, we like to think that there's something that we can do to hold the government to account and to ask the government to give more freedom to people. So the last time that they tried to get rid of the Constitution, it was people in North Carolina and South Carolina and Texas and Florida seceding from the United States. And Abraham Lincoln, in response to that, said nothing about slavery. His first response wasn't, well, we need to keep the Union together to get rid of slavery. He eventually got there, but not at the start. His argument at the start of the Civil War was that the Constitution demands that we create a more perfect union, and that if you get rid of a state, then the union is less perfect than it was before. I don't know what your feelings are about Florida. The easy joke is maybe it could be more perfect if we just get rid of Florida. I say this having lived in Florida. It's fine. But the truth is, I think if we're going to try and get rid of the Constitution, replace it with something new, that's a civil war. Now, again, the Civil War, the actual Civil War that we had, led to an enormous increase in freedom. And it led to the most important amendment of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, which not only defined birthright citizenship, but said very clearly that no person could be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that utterly changed the United States. It made the federal government, it allowed the federal government to guarantee people's freedom rather than take it away. So you won't convince me to say that Civil War wasn't worth it. But I'm not sure that we desperately need a Civil War right now.
I would say no.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it. What I would say is that maybe we need change to the Constitution to make America fairer and better.
Yeah.
Does your mic work? Maybe.
Put the power from mute to power.
So Kevin is, but go on, Dr. O'Neill.
Anyway, so if we were to overhaul it, one worries, just like one worries about the people amending the Constitution, one worries about why we're overhauling it.
Mm-hmm.
Are we overhauling it? Are we getting rid of it to make America more free, to give people more rights, or to take away freedoms, to change the Constitution and limit what a citizen can be, for instance? And I think that's a dangerous path to tread.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to come over and share? You can. Okay.
I can hear you, but not on this.
Or we can repeat the question.
Yeah. Do you want us to?
Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, could I maybe read the text that you sent? That question. Is that okay if I read that, or did you? Oh, it doesn't. But I think it's a good question. Maybe while he's.
Yeah. Well, say it and we'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, you mentioned Civil War. You mentioned Abraham Lincoln and the fact that he did not come around originally to the idea that Civil War could possibly free slaves.
Yeah.
And make a more perfect union.
Yeah.
And I agree, but I don't necessarily agree with everything. And I think that's probably coming from the fact that I am black and I am considered a minority and has been considered a minority since the Constitution was thought of.
Yeah.
Even in the sense of, I think you mentioned earlier about whether or not we were whole human beings and how we were included in that at some point. And you talked about how hard it is to make an amendment, what it would take to make an amendment. I still think that's pulling on heartstrings.
Yeah.
Because the process is there.
Mm-hmm.
So it just takes the people to say, you know what, we agree. And what keeps the people from agreeing on making the amendment is what makes it so hard for minorities, specifically black people, in this country to want to cherish the Constitution the way that many people have. Though you do have many older black Americans who believe wholeheartedly that the Constitution is good enough until we see certain things happen in the country like gerrymandering, what they're trying to do with voting rights, the fact that we can't get the John Lewis bill passed, and all those things. So when you look at something like the John Lewis bill, you mentioned voting rights earlier, you mentioned something about the civil rights movement didn't do enough. I agree that the civil rights movement didn't do enough. My question would be, did it not do enough to address going all the way back to 1863, which is what we're trying to do a lot. Do you think that happened because of all the people that got killed for the civil rights movement? Do you think it was that more so than the people didn't do it? What do you think could have been done more, I guess you could say?
Sure. So, please.
So yeah, can you sort of?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I know I impacted a lot in there. I was waiting.
No, it's good. There's a lot in there. Well, now you've got a mic. Do you want to sum up quickly, and I'll
just yeah. I just want to sum up with. I've been listening all morning, and I apologize for being so late. I got a great excuse, but I won't use that. I'll just say that listening all morning, and I'm trying to do this perspective, which is what Jay and I do. From time to time, I'm coming from a different world, but when you talk about the civil rights movement, you talk about the amendments, talk about what had to happen in order for the Constitution to change under Abraham Lincoln, the fact that it took a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And do I think it should take a civil war now? I hope it doesn't take a civil war, because we have, listening to you this morning and based off my understanding prior to, we have what it takes to make the amendments to not have to have a civil war. Am I correct in that thought?
Yeah, I think you are correct in that thought, but I don't know if you're correct in that thought today.
Okay.
Which is to say, I think America. I think it's going to be very hard to amend the Constitution right now. I think we're talking 50 years to get the kind of amendment that would guarantee more rights, especially, and let's not say more rights, but better guarantee rights, especially to people of color in America, and frankly to poor people in America as well.
Right. But that's not the Constitution blocking it. It's not anything in the Constitution blocking it. It boils down to people, basically.
Yeah, and so that's where I'm actually mildly more optimistic, where the Constitution changed dramatically after the Civil War. The 14th Amendment is, as I say, a new Constitution. The 14th Amendment says that it's the government's responsibility, the federal government's responsibility, to protect all Americans' rights. And what has happened since then is that the federal government ebbs and flows. It goes up and down in its willingness to protect all Americans' rights. The Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act are high points for that. And I think ever since then, we've been sliding down, to tell the truth. And I think we've been sliding up and down without ever there being an amendment. But I also think that what causes the federal government to be more willing to protect people's rights the way that it ought to, the way that the 14th Amendment says that all people, not just citizens, but all people deserve, is people getting engaged, people marching in the streets, people protesting, and none of those things will actually be popular while they're happening, but they will start to affect the way that people think and feel. Martin Luther King was not popular when he did it, and yet now everybody claims to have loved Martin Luther King when he was doing it.
Right.
But that's actually, I'll say, that's actually kind of a beautiful thing, where a bunch of people who look like me in 1968 could have seen Martin Luther King as a dangerous rabble-rouser. And then, through the years, through experience of interacting with people who don't look like me, through thinking harder and harder about the way that American society can work, about what opportunity can actually yield, then those people have a chance to change their minds.
Yes, it's sad to, I was having a conversation this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning with my 14-year-old in the car, not just with her, but with another person on the phone, but I tried to talk out front. I think she's going to be a governor one day, but we were just talking about, what exactly it's going to take. And I don't know that it's going to take a Martin Luther King, but I think it's going to take a lot of Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's and, Stokely Carmichaels, Newtons, and, Che Guevara and all those people. I think it's going to take a lot of those people and a lot of radicalism. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be some violence attached to that that's going to pave the way for people like Marco's age to be able to come through and make what you said 50 years. I kind of agree with that, so I hope I live to be 102, but to see that. But again, it's unfortunate, but time reveals what's probably going to happen, right? Like what's happened in the past is probably going to reveal. So I'm optimistic, but I do think the Constitution is a great piece of paper, and has some great things in it. But as soon as more people feel the same way, then I think we'll all be better off.
Well, I'm hearing music, and I know when we hear music, Kevin, Marco, that means we are, we're wrapping it up. I just have to say, Dr. Patrick O'Neill, Chair of History Department, Methodist University, you have been really a great guest.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to have you back again, because we only got through question 1, and we had 8 questions, so we might have to have you back 8 times.
Please do.
But we really appreciate you coming here, sharing information. I've learned a heck of a lot. Marco?
Yeah, I've learned a ton today. Thank you. And to get more content from Kev Jay, you can make sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We are on Facebook at WIDU 1600 AM, on Instagram at To Being Honest, and on TikTok at With Kev Jay. And you can also check out Kev Jay's podcast on their YouTube page, Q&A with Kev Jay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank a teacher, thank all professors, and we will have to have you back on. This is
Yes.
political season, and I think it's going to be very spicy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any final thing you